For the
Pallavi,
reference
you
of the
need to
audience.
on my video because you had stopped it earlier.
Okay. Just a second. Yep. So, for the reference of the audience, the program brochure shared in the chat box has all the profiles of all our esteemed speakers here today. Urs will also be moderating the session for SSF Global. So without any further ado, I pass the baton to Urs to take the conversation forward from here.
Thank you very much. Oops. Thank you very much, Pallavi. Hello and welcome to this webinar.
I believe there's a bit of a challenge with the network at Urs's end. Let's give him a minute.
So I'm back. I hope it works now. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So what did you hear before? Not much. I start all over. Thank you very much, Pallavi, for your introduction. Hello and welcome to this webinar, where we want to follow up on the last webinar, which we had in January, and want to give you some concrete follow-up on the discussions which we had last time. Today we're joined by Dr. Sanjeev Rastogi. He's partner and head of Capability Enhancement Center of Deloitte India. He possesses over 27 years of extensive experience in setting up and managing large operations in the shared services and business process outsourcing industry in the areas of finance, insurance, and procurement. He also holds a doctorate from Bharatiya University, and he's a chartered accountant, cost accountant, and company secretary. Also, we have with us Dr. Oliver Wolf, who is a senior advisor at Genpact. He brings over 30 years of experience in finance and shared services functions for global organization, and holds a degree in business administration and a doctorate in economic sciences from studies in Germany, Switzerland, France, and Singapore. Both bring, of course, a wealth of experience and knowledge to our discussion. Thank you very much for joining us. To our dear audience, as we develop today's topic, we encourage you to engage with us. Please share your questions, as Pallavi said, and your contributions will add on to this discussion very much. So without further ado, let's explore how we can transform the challenges of business process automation. I would like to start with the opening question to Dr. Rastogi, which is about the success rate of transformation projects. We all had a feeling that there are quite some issues with these transformation. I would like to give us, you to give us some input from your wide experience, please.
Thank you to Urs and welcome, Oliver. I've worked with you both in the past, and it's a pleasure to be sharing this forum with both of you. With regards to your question, Urs, in the recent study, one of the Big Fours had said the robotic process automation has a success rate of around 50-odd%. So most of 40 to 50% of these efforts have failed or not succeeded as they should have been. And the primary reasons has been few. One is the entire process, and one is the data input, of course, because that's not standardized. The second one, which we see and we have seen the real business cases, has been the process standardization. So if you are, and to give an example, there are 3-4 companies which I know were trying to implement, but invoice processing, as simple as invoice processing, the expectation was to do 100% automation, but the exception handling was 80%. So obviously, more exceptions you have, the difficult it is to automate anything. So more towards the standardization. Secondly, you will never achieve 100% unless you start in parts and you start in activities. Then we need to see how stable our systems are. And I think stability of systems is important because in the new era of the world, there are a lot of companies which grew organically and inorganically have run multiple systems. And it is difficult when there are multiple hands-off to automate your processes as efficiently. Secondly, we should look at what processes we are looking at to start with. We always bring complex processes to start with. I think it should be rule-based, high volume, transactional-based, and more standardized processing to start with. And that's how you move towards the complex processes to automate. And I think that has been our experience that companies, because if you look at an ERP implementation course, that's a long period. But in case of RPA or any automation, the project itself is around 60 days to 90 days or an automation or this thing. And then we need the subject matter experts. We don't need people who are doing the job. We need subject matter experts who understand the process, who has underlying understanding from end to end. And that really helps to build that solution. So roughly around, as I said, half of the solutions have failed. But these are some of the key learnings which I could share, Rose.
Thank you very much, Sanjeev. In regards to this topic, subject matter experts instead of people who are working on it, I would like to pass the word to Oliver about the transition topic, you know, that you mentioned earlier in a pre-talk about the this normal standard organization versus project-oriented organization. If you can give us your input on this one.
Yes, I would distinguish two different types of situations. The one is companies that are already in outsourcing operations, for which I would see a certain kind of complacent attitude towards a further change to AI, to automation, to further automation. The organizations are established and it requires a certain kind of catalyst to really shake them up. That's my simple question. The second thing is, or the second scenario is companies that are not yet in outsourced operations. How do they come to those AI solutions? And there, I do really believe that it requires the human capital first to really get them into a kind of status where they are able to automate. Yeah, and that is again here, and this is was what you referred to. This is a different kind of organization. This is not an outsourcing center or an SSC organization. This is a kind of project organization that has a clear vision to really standardize, automate, and drive on process excellence topics, rather than establish itself as an organization. And this is for me a real belief, and this is actually at the end for me the total prerequisite to only be able to really do automation at the end in an economical way.
Yeah, that this is exactly what we talked about. This that the organization format nowadays needs to be a different one than earlier. In regards to that, I would like to also ask Sanjeev how he experiences this. that the classic shared services organization, in how far this has changed in over the last years with automation and with artificial intelligence projects?
An excellent question, and thanks for your inputs, Oliver. So, of course, what's happening in the shared services world, and typically, as we know, the processes and for the large MNCs where they have captives or they have outsourced processes are very diverse in different countries, different continents, different zones. And what companies have started to do, as we saw a few years back when we started our India journey with Metro, was to create a GPO organization, a global process organization. And this is for each of the verticals, for accounts payable, accounts receivable, or R2R, or for various finance processes and other processes. And this comprises of experts who completely own the process, right from defining the process, the SOPs, defining the change management of the process, because assuming that you're working for a company which has operations in 90 countries and everybody is able to change. So obviously there is a change control mechanism, there is an approval board, and then there is a centralized review before any changes are implemented in SAP. Then there is a dedicated master data teams, which include supplier master data, vendor master data, journal master data. So the global process organizations are playing a critical role in defining how the architecture, how the processes would work. They also define the standardization in the level of simplicity, or they define the process, how it is supposed to work. And they really run the whole organization. I think the people in operations are implementing what's happening. It's more of a volume and transaction game. But the entire automation, the entire standardization, the entire digitization is through the process organization. And this is a must now to have that expertise to whether you are in outsourced this thing, and in an outsourced player, the GPO organization interacts with the vendor, so or with the service provider, because they own the process and they have insight and in-depth knowledge of the process. So I think that is one of the success mantras, I would say.
Do I understand you correctly that the power or the priority has changed? In the past, these process experts, they were more in the background documenting. And do I understand you correctly that nowadays these guys are actually much more in the lead than they were in the past?
Absolutely, and that I've seen in the Fortune 500 companies. This is what they have invested in, and I think they are reaping the benefits.
So it's much more important that you have now the thinkers more on there, so you can enable the base for transition into automation or into even AI, that you have really people who understand this process and who can also change the process in a way that it's getting more standardized, or what do you mean with this one?
No, they sit with the operations. They understand the nuances. They sit in the businesses. So a global process organization, for example, or a big GCC may be sitting in London or anywhere else or in Basel, but their team members are sitting across the globe with the businesses where the actual the transaction is triggered, right? For a supply chain process or for a finance process. And it really starts from a purchase requisition to a PO to an invoice to a GR, and then the whole process down the lane. And they look at the process at the lens that how the process, and they use SIPOC, they use everything else to define the process. Then they work with the operations teams to understand that how many exception handling we are doing, what are the nuances, how we can streamline, and what are the changes required to make it more streamer. And so they define, they lay out the process, and then they work to make sure that whatever automation opportunities or digitization opportunities come, they own it, and then they implement with the help of the operations team. So you're right. Of course, that's how the layout is right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Oliver, you mentioned before also that it needs a strong catalysts to enable the organization to do that. How would you define this, or can you give us an example for this catalyst that the organization is able and willing to do that changes as we just discussed?
Like I said, I think it requires certain teams to go into the organization, and that these little teams, rather smallish, that they have just the target of change.
Mm-hmm.
And to make it a bit of a picture, I mean, we started the same way of back when we at Metro, as we speak from experience, when we started off from the Western European countries, we initiated teams to take out work, in very simple terms, to take out work from Western European organizations. If you talk now about automation, we talk about taking out work from shared services organizations. Or, like I said in the previous comment, if the companies are not yet there, we can do all the same together. But it is about taking work out of organizations. And organizations are complacent, per se. So they will not agree from within itself to do that kind of work. So you need to put somebody else from outside in to really give that impulse. That's my very simple statement.
So it's getting back to change management again, yeah?
Absolutely.
How you get your organization into the mood of opening up to change. Even the standardized organization or highly standardized process organization already still open to change, because now we want to do the process which we do by hand or which we do so far in a normal ERP, whatever, and we want to automate that, or we want to even integrate that into an AI-driven process. And they need to be open for that.
All those arguments around that, there's a lot of technical topics around that. Like I said, you need a sufficient level of standardization only to be able to automate. Yeah, but this is the two things. The one is the technical part, to be able to automate, and the other thing is the willingness to automate.
Yeah, but how can you address that cultural that cultural change in a workforce? Do you have any ideas or any input for our listeners, what they would need to focus on? Open for both.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you, Oliver. Also, what we have seen is that you need to bring on board, you need to have a transparent communication. So there is a kind of a checklist that one, you need to bring on board everybody who's impacted and who's involved, that what we are trying to do, what is the vision and what is in for it. Because the fear of job, the fear of that something will take away and we becoming irrelevant gets into the way of implementing some of these. And I think the first checklist is open communication, bringing them on board, bringing the relevant stakeholders into the team meetings, and then have a periodic checklist and address those concerns. So I think transparency is very, very much required, because what happens is as soon as we embark with a CFO blessing or a CTO blessing on these projects, the technical people come in and they start implementing, and the profound fears of that, oh, we are automating this process, what will happen to me and all that. And obviously the grapevine starts to follow, which doesn't help. So one, we need to start communicating. We need to involve the stakeholders, both process owners and the operations and the right stakeholders, have checkpoint meetings, addresses concerns as we go along, monitor progress, and take everybody's input. Of course, finally, there's a steering co which takes a final call. So there has to be a structure on how the project or how the entire automation is implemented, right from a operations team, a project team, as Oliver was saying, which is important with having all the stakeholders. And then there's a steering co who takes the final decisions. And then there's a separate champion for change management, whose job is to ensure that time and again we communicate the progress and the plan and everything else, and then a proper communication on how it is going to the board or whoever the steering co will report into. So I think change management is the key to success for these kind of projects.
Yeah, I agree, and I've seen that myself, that in previous projects where I was part of, that the communication part was under prioritized, and I really like your approach to have an extra kind of project map for the communication and to be very transparent and involve people during the project. That's very important in all organizations, and I guess also in all cultures, because in the end, people want to know what's in there for me and what are the risks for me, correct?
Absolutely.
Oliver, any thoughts from your side on this one also?
Yes, of course. The title of the meeting today is 50% of all those efforts fail. So, and I can fully subscribe to what Sanjeev has just said, that communication is key to all of it, because you have to take people on a journey. Yeah? But I would put it in a threefold picture. Number one, it takes the full commitment of the management, of the leadership. Do you really want it? And I doubt that in a lot of shared services organizations that the leadership is really behind the idea of automation. Yeah. The second thing is to build this kind of catalyst team. It can come from within the organization. It can be external people. They need to be. They need to have the right incentives, so to say, to do that job. Yeah. And the third part is, like you said, is the communication part. Not to lose the people. Mm-hmm. Very important. Because even if think about in terms, even if you are in a transition period, you always need to have in mind to maintain the operating business. Yeah, and that cannot fall apart. Yeah, and so therefore, I think these are the three elements that I would recommend to have in mind.
Thank you very much. I would like to take a step back and also to go into the question from your point of view. Maybe I start with Sanjeev first. What are the functions where you say they are better or easier to implement with automation and artificial intelligence, and which one you would rather leave your fingers off, like we say in German? Sorry, I don't know the English proverb for this one, but which one you would rather not touch for these?
I think it's again also a very valid question. I think it's again what level of maturity curve you are with regards to your systems and processes and your whole ecosystem in terms of ERP. So I would say there are 5 things for the sake of repetition, I would say. So if I were to implement and we were to implement an automation project, so I will look at how the data stream is flowing. So I would say structured data input, stability of digital systems, stability of processes, rule-based processes, the standardization and the exception handling, and number of transactions and volumes. And the last one, I would say, judgment. How much judgment you have to make, or it's a rule-based processing, right? So if you're on rule-based processing, structured data, structured input, high volume, low complexity, straight way to go and identify those. You may not achieve 100% automation, because that's a myth that I can automate 100%, but that's a myth. You can always go up to 80%, because there always will be exceptions. There always will be something which where you need to make a decision or you need to make a choice. But I think that's a good beginning if you're able to automate 80% of these processes. So I would say follow a checklist, follow simple rules. And I think your task of identifying those processes becomes much easier. And these are typically in, procurement processes, your finance processes, where they are more transactional, they are more rule-based, they are high volume, and the technology can help you automate most of it. And you can identify those exception handling, and then you can address in the phase 2. That I would say is a quick mantra for identifying quick wins or improving your success rate in automating or digitizing your processes. Of course.
But that's not AI, considering AI, because what I thought AI would take over this judgment function.
No, AI is not okay. So again, AI is not that I bring AI, or tomorrow everything is artificial intelligence. So you needed to look at processes where the automation will come from technology like robotics, like other functions. AI will come in a very different processes. I think we are trying to confuse AI with RPA or process automation. There are two different things. We need to look at the different lenses. AI would come in where I have the machine learning, the machine learns the processes, the machine understands. This is the second phase of the automation, and I don't think they should run parallelly. First, you should automate your process, digitize them, and then bring in artificial intelligence. That makes your life easier because the skill set required to implement and the processes for AI and robotic automation or digitizations are very different, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much. Oliver, you were shaking your head about my statement before. Please.
No.
Okay, then I misunderstood that. No, I thought you were similar opinion of Sanjeev that this is not, that AI is not the same as automation. Is that correct? You agree with Sanjeev?
Absolutely, yes. And sometimes I have the impression that the AI is so much of a eye catcher today that this is overstated. Yeah, and I think that a lot of, and this is the process automation part that Sanjeev has just referred to, that most of the topics is kind of rule-based processing. And we have been operating with self-learning software for more than 10 years, I would say. Yeah, and but again, here, if I do really acknowledge that a machine is self-learning, but self-learning based on rules for me is not a question of intelligence. That's just accumulating knowledge. Yeah. However, I think it's a more philosophic kind of thing to distinguish this now. When we bring it down to the practical part, I would say do first things first, and a lot can be done on a rule-based logic, and there is so much intelligence or so much software out there that can be done. And again, here for me, I come back to it. I think the obstacle is the leading organizations of the shared services organizations. Yeah, because they just want to keep their business.
I mean, that's the slow-moving organizations, and also because everybody has their own benefits in this one, right? So it's difficult. You need to really get the point what's in there for me. You need to cover that one. Huh?
Absolutely, and that's the point. You just need to set the right incentives.
What kind of right incentives would you then see here? Or can you give us some examples how you can trigger that and how you can get the organization to move?
But again, here, not to be too specific, I think that a lot of Western organizations or even Anglo-American organizations, they are quite fine to have their shared services organizations in India, in Malaysia, or wherever, yeah, and they just lose attention, yeah, and maybe it is a bit more about having process quality instead of having cheap processes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that would be for me the element to go after, and then again coming back to what I have said, we have said before, is to come more into a kind of project organization, and what it requires to incentivize a project is something else than what you have in a established organization. And I mean, this is for all experienced people. This is clear what it means. Yeah.
But if you say program organization means that you really also set the targets differently, right? That the strategy is different. You know, I remember when we were, the target was for us to just acquire, in the beginning, it was to acquire additional services and to standardize. But then now it's the target needs to be set to put these processes into the system, that this is one specific target for the organization, right?
I can respond to it, Sanjay, if you want to say to it or respond to it.
No, Oliver, go ahead. Since you are in the flow, you can go ahead and then I can comment.
So one of the questions that I have been confronted with in my outsourcing career, so to say, was always, is outsourcing a one-way road? And hello, are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is outsourcing a one-way road? And the thing is, you take work out from established organizations from everywhere around the world, put them into SSC organizations, and then they sit there. What is the way out? Can we take the work back, or can we further optimize that, or are we okay with the level of quality, with the level of price for certain processes, or what comes next? So, and for me, building the roadmap, like you say here in your title, is what is next.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to say, okay, automation can be one thing, blah, 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 and so on. But again, here, for all my professional life, I have always considered it to manage people and not so much to manage certain processes or so, yeah? This is all technical or so, yeah? How can I bring people to really to move the whole thing forward? And that is for me the point to say, okay, you need to really capture the leadership teams in those organizations and to incentivize, to discuss the right things, and because they need to want it. Otherwise, the people from the baseline, they wouldn't do it from themselves.
But this also creates a kind of a skill gap, right? And with the existing organization, how this also, I think, there's also a challenge in regards to the transformation of the organization. You need to pick up these people and take them forward. What would you, Sanjeev, for example, recommend an organization who wants to start this journey in regards to this skill gap, or in regards to the organization, to the people?
Yeah, I think a very pertinent question, Orson, and I was going through the list of questions which has been raised, is that what is in for people for them to change? One is that they will move up the skills, because otherwise you will keep doing what you have been doing for the years, and then the attrition will go up and you feel that the organization is not investing in you. So what most of the organizations which I work with and within our organization, we have a very strong technical team. We are offer courses for people to move up the value chain, whether it is generative AI, whether it is Python, whether it is other technologies, SQL, Java, VBS, and some of the people wanted to move up on the presentations on Tableau and VBI and VBA, so etc. etc. So we need to tell people that you will move up, you will acquire new skills, you will be more relevant on what's happening around. Otherwise, you'll keep doing the same process where there's no learning and then the learning stops. Secondly, so you need to have a strong technical training team. You need to identify resources, asking them for volunteering, what they want to learn, where their interest is. So obviously we do a training need analysis, a TNA, and I think most of the organizations are doing a training need analysis. And this is done at the beginning of the year when the appraisals are happening. What is next for you? What is you required to grow in the organization? How do you see yourself in next 2 to 3 years? And where do we see a fitment? So the manager, the employee himself decides, and there's a roadmap which is decided. And accordingly, you need to invest, you need to bring external trainers, you need to bring online courses. And we leverage a lot of online courses and we encourage. For example, in Deloitte, there's a mandatory training of 40 hours. It's mandated for every employee, and it reflects on your goal sheet at the end of the year if you don't complete. So, and you can choose a plethora of activities, whether it's classroom or through the virtual mode. But then we insist people that you invest in yourself, you build, and you can choose your roles, the next move based on what you're going to learn and skills, and tie up with the educational institutes to offer them courses. And that's what most of the organizations are trying to do and invest. So upskill, upgrade your resources. They will be motivated. They will be part of this change management, and they feel that they are in, and the organization cares for them. That what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I would like to quickly go into the questions which come from the Q&A. There's one question. Can you please share a few success stories where AI or generative AI has worked well for an European company, considering multiple languages? Do you have yourself already some benefits out of this, or do you know any of these projects, AI and generative AI already?
Yes, Urs, there are a few in the agriculture sector. Because there are few in the agriculture sector.
Mm-hmm.
And in my previous organizations, there has been a lot of artificial intelligence in terms of the crops, in terms of what's happening. It may not be ready to process, but it is happening in a large scale in terms of output, yield, temperature, where sensing is done remotely, where the drones comes and capture the soilness, and then the action is taken, and it triggers for the further action. So it's a lot happening in the business side, in the R&D side, and there are multiple cases. I know of a company who's in drug discovery where all the results are standardized, because if you see the molecules, it takes around 6-7 years and around hundreds of millions of dollars to do this, because huge data was manually this thing, and the results were scrutinized. And then now, if you look at the drug discovery, there's a lot of AI which is being used, a lot of in agriculture sector, in other sectors. So there are a lot of use cases, not so much in the process side, because it is just coming to this, and data is a key. So people are concerned about the data privacy and other issues. So it's going to pick up in the next 18 months, I would say, on the data side and the processes side.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oliver, do you have a specific example on hand?
Like I said, I mean, we've been dealing in the retail business with, in particular, mass processing.
Mm-hmm.
We have multiple cases of self-learning IT or applications. doesn't matter really now to name it. Yeah, that is all possible. And again, here the algorithms. Again, here most of the stuff, from my perspective, is not really intelligence, but rather a kind of math learning. Yeah, but still it is learning, and it replaces human work.
But
Yeah,
what I then, oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I thought you were finished.
And again, I come back to the beginning of the conversation here. What Sanjeev said is that it simply takes out human work, and that requires an enormous effort in communication. And there is two sets of people: the one that are really hungry for the improvement, and the other ones that are not part of the game. Yeah. So again, here, again, for the meantime, it is not to lose both of them, but to really find those people who are then at the end the catalysts to drive things forward. Again, here I have a little bit of a difficulty here to find the right answer, because it is not the one answer for a certain kind of technology, because it applies all across the board. And again, my key sentence is: do you want it, or don't you want it? Yeah.
Yeah. But in regards to the catalyst and the making it happen, I have one interesting question. In the overall journey of transformation, there is a strong need for right partners. What are your considerations for selecting the right technology partners or vendors for automation and AI solutions? You both are very close to the topic, so maybe you can share also some of your ideas about the selection of the right partner.
Oliver, you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
I think clearly, also, one, we need to understand our landscape of systems, our landscape of complexity of processes, what level of automation we want, and what, of course, language, process, different systems, our data input, our data landscape. So we need to, an IT landscape, we need to understand, and the level of complexity in terms of geographies, and the processes we are trying to look at. What typically most of the people do is pick up vendors who have experiences working across geographies, working across systems, working across different architectures, data architectures, who have good understanding, and who can define, who has a depth in terms of understanding of processes themselves, who are process experts as well as automation experts put together. And they come with a blend of both solutioning and implementation. And that's where a synergy comes in, because that's where the value add comes in. Of course, the organization yourself will have process experts, will have people who are doing operations, but having seen all the other different organizations, having done multiple implementation, multiple geographies, multiple systems, I think that experience will definitely help. Of course, cost is a consideration. If you are looking at only very few high transactional, very simple process automation, and it's just a standalone process to be done or few processes, then you may not look at multi-locational or multi-dimensional vendor. You may look at somebody locally who can do this for you. But with a larger vendor, one thing you are very sure of, that your data architecture remains the same. They take care of compliance. They take care of audit issues or anything, because anything which you do in SAP or anything you do, or you touch your accounting systems or your supply chain systems, has to be audited, has to be certified, and has to be complied with. So vendors having experiences working in tables, working in these dimensions definitely help.
So in industry expertise.
Yeah.
I have another question here. Any specific expectations for any function, sub-function process where we should not use AI as per statutory law, for example? Do you have any, yeah, they talk about legal issues.
If there is statutory law and which prohibits to automate something or so, that's not discussable, yeah?
I would like to also go back to this question about the data. You said in the beginning, Sanjeev, and repeated it several times, which is very shows me also the importance, the data management and security. That when you want to go into automation or AI or any further generation of IT, the data is one of the key topics, and you mentioned several times also the systems. Maybe we can have that a twofold, the system landscape and the data landscape. If you can give me data, what are the specific challenges and how in your past you have addressed that?
I think the data integrity, also, I think what happens is today, the business is dynamic. The business leaders, the CXOs, the sales heads, and all the business heads wants data information. The workday closure on workday 5, workday 4 is a thing of past, is more compliance. But with the advent of Salesforce, advent of different tools, you want information that where my pipeline is, where my data is, how much sales I'm doing, where I'm tracking. So information is real time, and that has changed. So rather than relooking and doing a post-mortem, you really want data real time. And the accuracy of data, the integrity of data is must. I've seen where organizations were struggling with having different versions of SAP, instances of SAP, combining them, bringing another tool to consolidate data, and then further analyzing it, creates complexities, creates integrity of data, and the speed of data which is available for businesses to take a call or take a decision. So, and that is why it is important that we have the pulse on the data. It is available real time. You click off a button and you know which region, which salesperson, which is on the field, what is happening, where the person is, who's connected to the customer, what's happening. And I think that's happening in the service industry. We just implemented Salesforce, and then that's happening across, whether you are in service, manufacturing, and anywhere else. So you really need to have a strong ERP platform, one strong ERP platform, consolidation, data flowing smoothly, data tables defined smoothly, and that information flowing at right time for right decisions and immediate decision rather than being a reactive decision to help businesses.
But how do you get this data to that state?
Oh, there are tools. There are multiple tools available in the market. So, for example, people are going for SAP for HANA. You can go for Central Finance. You can bring in another tool, data warehouse. Now, I was just very closely, SAP has come with data warehouse, data analytics, and they go into the tables, they go into the cost center. So I run my reports. I can go into data warehouse, I can go into data analytics, and I get everything what I want to take a decision.
Okay.
So, and this is available, and this is being implemented. These are 3 major banks, European banks, which are doing right now.
But
and
again,
I know one of the.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, I'm in touch with somebody who is implementing this data warehouse, data analytics from SAP with Anaplan and other stuff, which includes level of cost center level details and analysis coming out immediately for a cost center owner or business process owner or business owner, and the level of details and products and quality and pricing and discounting. So you can take a call immediately. And
but that is an intermediate step, right? So first you need to implement certain systems that you can then leverage the data for the next level for automation.
Yes, you need to standardize all your systems, the main ERPs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to address another question. We had it touched before. I would like to address that specifically to Oliver. What kind of support sponsorship is required from CXOs to avoid failure rate of these tech transformational initiatives? We have talked about incentives before. We have also talked about strategic orientation. But you as you were on group responsible for these before, and now in your current role, I'm sure it's also very important. How do you talk to these CXOs? How can you convince them about transformational projects, about automation projects, about AI topics? What are your key features?
It's probably only a story, but when I decided to join Metro for that outsourcing job, I asked the CEO, "What is your plan B?" And he said, "There is no plan B. So if the confrontation is too much, we just put on our helmets and we go through it." Yeah, and that was the one answer that I was looking for, because especially when you are then ultimately responsible in an operating function, and you push the organizations, the country organizations, you push them, and all of a sudden you realize that you have nobody behind yourself. That's a no-go. That kills you. Mm-hmm. So it's really the determination of the top management that is required to drive that stuff. And that is a little bit my point, that I say, okay, now everything is in kind of rather price-conscious organizations in there, yeah. And how do you get out of these things again into automation? Because there are no big business cases in terms of money if you take something out of a Malaysian or Indian organization to put it into automation. That was one of your questions earlier, because all of those technical solutions, they're obviously only opportunistic cost models. Yeah, there is no big deal in there. So I think, or I would recommend at least, to rather focus more on the process quality, on failure rates and so on, to get it out of there, and there again to get more management commitment again to drive these processes.
And you also mentioned that the customers of these, or the original owners of these processes, they are happy to get back control the moment you have it in the system.
That's another topic. Yeah, I mean, you have given out a lot of manual work, and country organizations have lost control over the processes. To a certain extent, they were positive and willing to kind of compromise on this process ownership for the sake of simple cost. Yeah, and now with automation, you have the chance basically to give back some process control back into the country organizations, or into the kind of central group organizations. So to say, if you say, okay, we don't employ 2,000 people anymore, we only have a couple of hands back and so on, then really from a cost perspective, it doesn't make much of a difference where those people are.
True. I agree with this one. The global aspect is also one of this one, right?
Yeah.
Sanji, if you wanted to say something on this one as well?
No.
Okay, I have one more question here. The rapidly growing or changing business environments internally and externally, what role does scalability play in designing a roadmap for automation and AI transformation? We also touched this a little bit, that you said scalable processes are more interesting. I think there we have, we did not cover everything. We are also running out of time. I'm just the information that the time is almost done. I would like
to give a quick answer to it. Of course, anything that is, or any process that is kind of scalable is of course easier to make it a business case for automation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very clear.
And that's actually also kind of a very good closing word from you, Oliver. Thank you so much. The time is over. We're running out of time. I would like to express my gratitude to you two joining this talk. It was a very interesting talk. I'm very happy also that we could cover a lot of questions from the people. There are still some outstanding questions which we will then answer in a quick summary afterwards, which we will provide to everybody who was joining. Thanks again to Sanjeev and to Oliver for joining. And I hope we have answered some questions of the people of how we can make this in a pragmatic way, on a very local, on a down to earth, with very concrete examples, to give answers to the questions of how we can successfully do transformations to automation and AI. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to talk to you in another round. And we're having, one thing I would like to remind, we will have another webinar in end of March. We will inform you about it and a follow-up topic. And then we will be happy to have you with us again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have Pallavi or Rakesh joining, Urs, if you know?
Pallavi is still here.